Hi everyone. Okay, the days are getting closer, and I'm on the countdown for court. But I'm praying. Coming here to YouTube um, is in a way um, my way of praying, my way of getting close and personal with my faith. And I want to tell you something so amazing that happened to me. I can never get over this. It actually happened to me in January as a result of something bad. Something so beautiful um, came through for me, and I can um, never ever overlook it. I told you guys that before, actually in 2016, the court that I'm going to for the one felony case gave me a so-called plea deal. They said, okay, we'll give you 16 months in the county jail, you'll do 8 months, and then the other court will give you concurrent time. So I took it. I took it knowing somehow that it was a really bad idea and I shouldn't do it, and I should have listened to my instincts. Um, but I didn't. So I took the deal, and then they gave me some months to turn myself in. And when I went to turn myself in, the court reneged. Even though it had already sentenced me, the judge had sentenced me already. It was a done deal. It wasn't just a plea. And the day that I went, the prosecutor had a shit fit, and she had the judge went along with something that was wrong and illegal, and they took back the sentence. They claimed it was an illegal sentence, but it wasn't illegal on my part. Um, they made the error. So what they did is they just absolutely ripped me apart. The day I went to turn myself in, they took back the sentence. They put a uh, big bail on me and threw me in jail. And I was in there until November, when I posted bail and they put a ankle bracelet on my ankle. Not the court, though. Um, and I came out and I thought, this was so wrong of them to do this to me, but okay, I'm gonna go and I'll keep going to court and fight the case. And then that was November, and of course, I've always done what I'm supposed to do on bail. I've always gone to court. In fact, I obey so much to a fault that I'm always at court early. I'm on time. I'm there the whole time. I'm available. I obey all the rules, make all appearances. And I went there in January, and that same prosecutor added a charge which was already in the complaint. So it was nothing new. She just decided to put it on the front page of the complaint instead of on the third page. And what happened is that it was a different judge this time, and a relatively younger judge if you compare him to all the other judges in that court. And he is pro prosecution, and he's very corrupt, very corrupt. And what he did is, because of that, and I didn't even see this coming, because of that, he put a brand new bail on me and threw me in jail for no reason. It was kind of a loophole that the prosecutor and the judge took. And for no reason, I found myself in jail for 4 days with a brand new, humongous bail. And I'm not exaggerating, because I don't like to exaggerate if I really don't have to. And it was at that time when I was there when something really amazing happened to me with all of the hardships in there. When I was in there back in October until November, when I could bail out, it was one of my darker moments. It really was. It was so scary. I was in a cell block with some of the worst inmates. They were so mean to me, and they were so absolutely mean to me. And so I really had only myself, um, and it was one of the most difficult times I've ever faced. When I was in there one day, when they let me out of my cell for my 1 hour or 50 minutes out, I was out of the cell and I went down the steps, and I was looking at a tiny little ledge that had some books on it. And what I found was a Holy Bible, and the Bible was very worn, and it had all these markings on it, all these tabs that I'm thinking a previous inmate had used. And it had all these tabs on it of sections that were marked. So when the deputy told me to take it back in and I had to go back in the cell, I sat down on the bunk and I opened this Bible, and I kid you not, and I don't dramatize this in any way, but that Bible, all those passages that were marked were the exact passages that referred to me and what I was going through at that very time. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And that's the one tangible object that sustained me through that time until I could post bail, because my every day and night was sleeping on a rock. It was unbearable. And I would open that Bible every day and I would read it, and every day I'd be amazed all over again how those passages pertained, the verses, the words, they spoke to me. And I don't think it was mind over matter. I don't think it was in my head. It was too, it was uncanny. And it was just something else. And I kept that Bible. But here's another thing that happened. Every day I would have a setback in trying to post bail because I was totally on my own. And I came to a crossroads. If this is what believing in God is, and if this is what being with God is, if it's constant suffering and constantly being punched in the face, and if it's only suffering, I don't want it anymore. I got so angry in a moment that I threw away that Bible. And God knew how I felt. I made that decision, and when I did eventually post and get out and go back, I sat in the house after 2 days of being homeless because I had previously had all the power turned off. So when I got back to the house, it was freezing cold. So essentially I couldn't be in here because it was so cold. There was no light, there was no hot water, there was nothing, and it took about 2 days to get everything turned back on. But when I came back to the house and I sat here and I thought I shouldn't have thrown it away, and I really regretted it with all my heart. And I went back to God, because faith has a way of bringing you back, of finding you and taking your hand and bringing you back. But at that very moment, I said, God, if it's your will, bring me that Bible back. Please, please. Here's what happened. In January, the judge wrongfully put a brand new bail that was 3 times that original bail, put me in jail, had me imprisoned. wrongfully for no reason. But when I was in there, they had me in the receiving section, but I was actually locked away on my own. They always do that to me because I had a lawsuit against them 10 years ago, and they're still stupid enough to think that that lawsuit is in effect when it was gone. It started and ended 10 years ago. At any rate, they had me in a cell by myself, and it was a horrible place. They flagrantly break all the rules, the laws, and the policies pertaining to the sheriff's department in there. So they haven't made improvements, they've actually made it worse. And it took sheer effort to get through that reception. And when they took me to the permanent housing, as they call it, here's what happened. They put me in a cell. All cells have two bunks, the lower and the upper. And I laid down on the lower bunk and I looked up, and there were some of the passages that were in that same Bible before. Another inmate had written these passages, and we only have pencil in there, a tiny pencil. So you could tell that it was written with a lot of difficulty, but it was written. And it all came to me full circle. Why I ended up back in there, that Bible. I will never, ever, ever forget this. And I actually removed the piece of paper that the inmate had written the passage on, or the message on. And the other ones that were just written directly on the metal bunk, I copied down with a pencil from my neighbor, who was this beautiful girl, and she was so nice to me. And I'll put this, let's see. Okay, I don't know if it's in frame, but all right. So I memorialized it, and I don't know how this is showing, but anyways, it says January 11, 2017, still in county jail, but while still imprisoned, I discovered the following in cell block, such and such, in cell number. And here is the actual paper that my neighbor gave me, and I copied down the passages. And I'll read them to you. Here's the actual physical paper that I took down, the message that the inmate had written. This is the actual piece right here, and the rest are the messages. So, okay. She dated it 06/11/2017, and it says, "This is your testimony. Live it, speak on it, teach it, preach it, save a life." That's what it was meant for. On a different section was written, "Dear fellow inmate, I'm here to tell you it will get better. I know it's hard. You're wondering how the hell you got here. God has a plan. Stay focused. Stay prayerful. Satan will try to steal your joy every chance it gets. Do not let it. You are stronger than it is. You are not a mistake. God makes no mistakes. Faith never makes a mistake. And you really aren't a mistake. You're here for a reason." The third message is, read John 16:33, Jeremiah 42:12, Hebrews 10:35 and 36, Matthew 5:16. And the actual piece that I took down is Hebrews 12:8, MSG version. This trouble you're in isn't punishment, it's training, the normal experience of his children. God doesn't have a gender, so I would say of its children. But how amazing. How amazing. See, the universe or the multiverse, if you're able to see beyond what's just in front of you. But collectively, the universe never makes a mistake. The universe has a way, and that way is how it directs energy and how you contribute to that. See, there's always a beautiful lesson in everything. I've also learned this, that I'll never use a person as a crutch. I'll be happy in myself and of myself. The only crutch I'll ever have is faith and God. See, people will come and go in your life, at least in my experience, so I can't say this for everybody. I've never been loved, and I've always searched and searched for love. I've always wanted to be loved. It meant so much to me to be loved, and I never met that person. I've had a lot of relationships. And then I discovered and I came to believe that you have to love yourself. And as long as God, as long as your faith loves you, that's all you need. If you're like me, you know, there are some people who are loved, you know, they have people or they have someone. I never had that, and I always wanted it, but I came to a place where this is where my heart is at, that I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. I don't know about the future, but I know about now, and I'm so blessed. And I count my blessings because God has kept me standing. You know, I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot in my life. My father, the mean man, the controlling sociopath who I've mentioned before, he died a while ago. Unfortunately, I was in jail when he was dying, and I wasn't able to go see him. Here's where I'm going to be very, very honest. I say unfortunately for one reason and one reason only. And I'm being very raw and honest in saying this. Unfortunately, because I was not free, I was in the county jail and therefore not free. So I couldn't go to him and get the closure that I needed so badly. The closure that I needed was to tell him how much he had always hurt me and that I did not forgive him. That's what I needed, and I was never able to get that. The closure that I needed was to tell him how much he had always manipulated and controlled and insulted and put me down and hurt me, and how he so cruelly gave me up to whatever powers that be. And that I did not and do not forgive him. And that he would leave without my forgiveness. I'm being real here. I'll always be real with all of you. I so wanted to tell him on his deathbed that I do not forgive him. And I know that I'm here talking about God, talking about doing what's good, about this and that. But then I'll say this too. I will never be anything but real, anything but myself. And I'm always going to be honest. I'm always going to be me, myself. Because I've always wanted that in other people, and people were never honest with me. I'm going to be what I've always wanted. So you see, he always hurt me in so many ways. And when he was dying and I was unable to go to him to tell him all that he did, it was really hard for me. I wanted to tell him that all of his controlling and insulting, that him allowing me to be molested by my mother's boyfriend, when by his own admission, years later, when we were talking, he had known about it all along while it was happening, and he chose to allow it to happen when he was in another state, but he knew all about it. He chose not to save me, his own daughter. I wanted to tell him about his inability to love me, and because of that, the path that he set me on in always and forever searching and searching in others for the love that I never got, the love that I needed and wanted and never had, and that none of what he did was okay. And I don't forgive him. And may he leave this world without my forgiveness. I never got that closure. And ever since his death, I continued to hate him. And yes, to be eaten up by it. It does eat you up. But it's not that it's counterproductive. It's that if this is how you feel, this is how you feel. And it's valid. But it's amazing also that your messages come through sources that sometimes you don't expect, or sources that your messages don't always come the way that you want or think that they will. Sometimes your messages come through sources that you don't expect. And this one came through me, through someone. And it's so valuable for me. He once told me, whenever you think about how hurtful a person was, also do this. Think about the one good thing that that person did. And that will always keep you. So today, I chose to think about something my dad told me many times. He used to tell me so much. And this is what he told me. Terry, no matter what's happening at the time, and no matter how bad it is, find 1 minute to live in the moment. And he gave me an example. He said when he was a kid, he and his family were at a funeral for a close relative. And that day, the cemetery was very lonely and very solitary. But the sun was out and it was really bright and beautiful. And in a moment, he looked somewhere and he saw his father sitting on a stone bench in the cemetery park with his hat off, and he was holding his hat in his hands, and he was looking up at the sun and smiling. So he went over to his father and he asked him, you know, we're at a funeral and why are you smiling? And he said, I'll tell you why, because right now, right this second, the sun is out and it's beautiful and it's shining down and it's so warm and it feels so good. So I'm going to sit in the sun even for this 1 second, and I'm going to let it shine down on my head and warm me because it feels so good. So what he was telling me is, if you see that one moment of beauty, live in it, live in the moment. Take that moment for yourself, enjoy it. So in the future, you can look back on it and say, yeah, I did have that something beautiful. And if you're lucky, it'll last. And I always think about what he said, and I always remember it. See, even in the midst of your darkest moments, in your most difficult moments, even if there's just one ray of warm sun, then enjoy that 1 second. Live in that moment. Do that for yourself. That was the one good thing that I kept. So this morning, I did that. I opened the door and I walked outside to the sidewalk, and I went and I stood in that one spot where the sun was shining really beautifully and really hot. And I sat down on the sidewalk and I let it shine down on me and I let it warm me, and it really felt good. And that's where I wrote all of this for you guys. And this is what I'm going to keep. Someone once asked, how do you survive all of this? I say, you survive it by doing something that you've never done before. You step out of the insanity and you become very spiritual. You become so spiritual and so true to it that you can touch it. That you can touch your faith. That's how. That's how you survive. See, your faith will sustain you through the darkest moments. Even if sometimes it may not feel like it. And if your pain and your hurt becomes so unbearable, so much to take, that it's too much, and you lose touch with that faith, like I did for a moment with that Bible, then know this. Faith is like no other. Faith will wait for you patiently, and it will come back to you, and it will look for you. Because even though you lost it, it never lost you. And it will find you. And it'll bring you back to it, whether by good or by bad. But it will move things to happen to you so that you'll be reunited with it despite yourself. That's what fate, that's what the universe is. By sheer force, but a beautiful force, I'll tell you this. Your faith will never give up on you, ever. So I tell you this. Never give up on your faith. Try not to give up on your faith. Faith is grace. And grace is so beautiful. Nothing can take the place of grace. You know you can't earn it. You know you can't collect and save points to get it. Grace is given to you by your faith. So do it. Keep your faith, and your faith, no matter what, will always have you in its sights, and your faith will always keep you in return. See you guys.